Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I'm a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on January 26, 2022 at approximately 9:53 a.m. PST. We've been talking a lot about getting finances in order, and I'm going to take a sidetrack on that for just a minute and look at education. Now, the educational system, like society itself, is absolutely botched right now on so many levels. Education, materialism, politics, racism, you name it, and religion is right smack up there with it. Now, I was sent back to this world, cast down here again, if you will, to pass on one simple message. And that is that working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. Now, I mentioned that education is a bit of a shambles. Oh, by the way, if you like the video, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and pass it on. Don't forget to hit the alert button to let you know when the next video comes out. But please share it with everybody you can, because this message is for everyone in existence, every entity in existence. Now, this is a live recording, meaning when I get done with it, I double check the date to make sure I got it right, and then post it as is. Now, I started this video stating that education is a problem, and here's why I say it's a problem. Okay, I cannot really blame the educators, the teachers, and the parents that are doing the teaching. They were taught by their parents, and it's been taught that way for centuries. But there's a saying in the computer industry that goes garbage in, garbage out. If people are being educated towards, and this is sadly the case, if kids are being educated to be greedy, to be disrespectful, to be fearful, to be prejudiced, that's the way they're going to lead the world. And that is what is happening today. Don't believe me? Take a look at a bunch of kids, just 2 or 3-year-olds, put them all in the same room, and stand back and watch. They will not differentiate between who has a physical challenge, who has a mental challenge, who has a different skin color or a different build. They just don't differentiate. Adults teach them to be prejudiced, and that has to stop. Now, I only follow 3 laws. Be true to yourself first. Do unto others as you desire them to do unto you. Energy out, energy in. Okay, now, if you take a look at the laws that you personally follow, whether they're written, spiritual, support group oriented, it doesn't matter. Take a look at them. Okay, and compare them to those 3. And I do feel you'll find that they all fit inside those 3. Thus far, I haven't found any that are an exception. Okay, so something to keep in mind is if we are going to change this world from where it is to where it can be, which is running smoothly. I remember some 40,000 years ago now, I remember past lives. You don't have to believe that. We can stick to this life. But there was a time when mankind did not have greed, did not have prejudice, and there was absolutely no war, globally speaking. Okay, there was none. This can be attained again, but it's going to require the efforts of everybody. And if you take a look at the idea of be true to yourself first, do unto others as you desire them to do unto you, and energy out, energy in, you'll find, number one, war has never brought peace. It brings quiet, but it does not bring peace. And contrary to popular belief, it is not a good economy boost. If it were a good economic boost, the economy wouldn't be in the state it's in right now with the number of wars going on around the world. But this is what we're taught. This is what we are educated to believe. Okay, the other problem I'm finding is there are a staggering number of people that are graduating, being told they've learned everything really well, and yet are completely dysfunctional in the real world. Okay, when you're graduating, being told that you're doing everything right and you cannot add 2 and 2 in your head, you're not being taught effectively. Whether it's being taught right or not is for somebody else to decide. But you're certainly not being taught, effectively. The two major things that used to be the three primary considerations in education were reading, writing, and arithmetic. Okay, very few people can read properly at this point. Okay, very few people do basic math. We rely on computers, and this is the first time in centuries, okay, since the last real evolutionary advance, that all of our recorded information, if there is a major power outage, all of that information goes away. There's very little hard copy written. Okay, it's all dedicated, it's all recorded on computers, which is great. Takes up a lot less room, uses a lot less material. But unfortunately, it's also being stored in a place that is extremely vulnerable. And if there is a massive power outage, all the information sitting on computers is going to be essentially useless. Okay, and this is just the way it is. Okay, you don't believe me? Crash your computer and see how much of your recorded information you've got left. This is why I prefer hard copy. But the important factor here is we've got to look at the education. Now, if the school system is failing, then it falls to the parents, who are likely undereducated to start with, to educate the kids with as much information as they can, with as much know-how as they can. And it requires turning to other members of society that have figured out how to do things to teach your kids those things that you don't know how to do. Now, for me, I know the way I can track the way people think a lot. Okay, I should be able to. I've been doing this for 48 years. Okay, realistically, I've been doing it for 58, which is how old I am, but it became public knowledge when I was 10. Now, that said, technology across the board has been a problem for me. Okay, computers, I use this one. I've managed to get it working as far as I have, and that's good enough for me for the time being. Okay, but if I were to look at a car, well, it's technology. I go to the mechanic. Some people have a very solid grasp on the way technology works. Fewer have a solid grasp on the way that farming works. As in, how do you take care of things without modern medicine? How do you grow plants? How do you repair things in such a way that they are functional? Not necessarily looking the best. Okay, we have to look at the education. And when the thing that has the real pandemic that we're facing right now, intriguingly enough, it's not what most people think. The real pandemic is apathy. Well, I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want to say it wrong. This is wrong at work, but I don't want to say anything. If nothing is said, nothing changes. People keep talking about this idea that they desire the world to change, but they themselves do not desire to change. Now, I desire my office to work better. Okay. So, I'm the one that's going to have to do the work to make it happen. And it's the same as your end, because the only person in existence, the only entity in existence that can make your life better is you. Okay, so let's start at a real simple, or we'll reiterate at a real simple point. Where it comes to the energy in your own body, because that's the first place you start. Okay, we start with the energy in your own body. Take your hands, put them, and you'll notice the similarity here. With many religions, you put your hands together to pray. Well, it's sort of the same kind of a concept, except hold your hands just about that far apart, about a quarter inch to half an inch apart, and concentrate on that. You'll feel something between them. Now, I don't know how you're going to phrase it. You may chalk it up to body heat. You may chalk it up to a kind of a pulse, a magnetic pressure. Doesn't matter what you call it. You can call it a peanut butter sandwich. When you get a feeling there, concentrate on that and let one word go through your head. That one word being heal. You don't have to know what's wrong with your body. All you have to know is that you're willing to let your body heal and become more effective. It's been through this method and making certain adjustments that I've managed to get my eyes working properly, reasonably. I'm still working on that, which is why I've still got the glasses. I'm bringing my weight down. Okay, I'm quite happy with the fact that my weight is dropping, because I'm not happy with my current weight. It's not been anything anybody else has said. It's just something, and I looked in the mirror and went, I don't like what that looks like. We've been told, go to the professionals to find out there's something wrong. Okay, if you're sitting there and something feels off, go to a doctor, find out what's wrong. Well, the reality is doctors are extremely useful. When I snapped this arm, I snapped it so bad, I had to have it bolted. And I had to go to somebody that was educated well enough to put it back together. But here's the thing. In today's world, people are not learning math properly. If you don't know basic math and you don't know the basic interactions, you cannot become an effective surgeon. Okay? If you do not know basic reading, you cannot become a computer programmer. As a matter of fact, basic reading and basic math are both necessary. But these are things that people are forgetting. Okay. It is one of these things, one of the other dying arts that seems to be out there is what they call cursive writing. Okay, handwriting. Way back in the what was it now, in the late 1800s, early 1900s, all you had to do was put an X on a document to make it legal. Then they developed cursive writing to make it so that you could personalize it, so it was more definitive that you were the one saying it, that you were the one agreeing. Okay, and of course, if you don't know how to read properly, all the legal contracts that are out there when you're buying a new piece of equipment, a new piece of technology, they've got all these contracts. These are the legal obligations. If you cannot read effectively, you're not going to be able to understand them, and you're not going to know what you're signing into. Okay. These are major problems with education. If you cannot do basic multiplication, addition, and division, and subtraction in your own head, if you can't do the basic stuff in your own head, take the calculator. Take this funny little thing here. Take your calculator, take your computer. If you can't do it in your head, if you do not know how, take this thing and throw it out the window. Put it aside and learn to do it on paper. Re-educate yourself to be able to do your math on paper, and subsequently in your head, before you bother using this thing again. When I was going to school, these were not even permitted in a classroom until grade 8. Now, yeah, that was a long time ago. Very long time ago when you think about it. 13, yeah, about 45 years ago. But they had a point. These little things are a great tool. They are fantastic. But if you can't do it in your head, it's totally useless. There was a post that came through on Facebook a little while ago that showed a phrase that was all written out in jumbled letters. And obviously the point of it, at least to me, the point seemed to be, it doesn't matter if you can spell, because these are laid out the right. If the first and last letter are right, you can still make out what's in the middle. But what they don't tell you is if you cannot read in the first place, you're not going to be able to read that at all. Because you won't know what's the first letter and what's the last one. Okay? Which is why this has to be re-educated. You've got to teach yourself. If you don't know how, remind yourself or go and talk to somebody that does know how and refresh your memory. Okay? If we don't start communicating again, start working with each other, start learning how to do these things with other people, then frankly, society is going to run into a problem. It's already run into a problem. Okay, I've run into certain ones myself. Okay, because there are things I just don't get my head wrapped around. But where it comes to the education, yes, education is extremely important. But if the educational institutions are turning out people telling them they know how to think, that they know how to do this stuff, and again, all they've done is shove them through, and the person doesn't have the skills, then the education system is not working. Ask yourself this. Take a look at where your child is. Ask yourself, are they capable of doing what the teachers say they're capable of doing? Give them a test at home. Okay. Now, I realize that we're supposed to rely on the educators. If the educators are failing, if you don't know what they're up to, if they're failing, then it's up to you to make sure you stay on top of it. Okay, this applies to every industry. Okay, now the funny thing about it is when you look at bigger industry, okay, you cannot run a company if you don't know how it all runs. You don't have to be the best, but you've got to understand the principles. If you don't understand the principle of accounting, and you bring in an accountant to take care of your money, they will be able to do all sorts of things with your money and you'll never see it coming. So it's very important. This is one of those courses that should be looked at in school, is basic accounting. Now, I'm not worried about the budget side, because the budget side doesn't work, in my opinion, unless you have a definitive amount of money to work with. Okay, on a regular basis. But tracking finances works extremely well. But again, this boils down to education. And a lot of the time what happens is that people they're being taught by people that don't really know. This is why I say, when you're looking at when you're looking at doing something, doesn't matter what it is, talk to somebody that has done it successfully. Now, if you want to talk to me about going bankrupt, I've successfully gone bankrupt twice. Once by my own creative financing, once because somebody else pulled a maneuver. They literally bounced a paycheck and I didn't know about it. Net result until it was way too late. But in both cases when I went bankrupt, I was guided by a so-called professional to go bankrupt. Now you figure this one out. Okay. The first time I went bankrupt on a $6,000 debt. $6,000. Now, can you imagine being told as a young adult, if you don't know any better, being told that you've got to go bankrupt with this debt? Okay, and then 20 years after the bankruptcy, finding out that there was an easy way to bypass bankruptcy. Okay. Well, it was worse in my case. 6,000 was the first one. The second time I went bankrupt was on 14,000. Now, this is absolutely stupid. But both were at the guidance of so-called professionals. The only thing these two people did, they made money, they got their benefit. The bankruptcies did nothing for me. Now, I will put it to you this way. I am not a financial advisor, but I am a financial experiencer. And that being said, if you think you're on the verge of bankruptcy, absolutely drop me a line. Okay, the simple fact of the matter is, I've been bankrupt. I know what happens in the bankruptcy. I also know how to avoid it. Okay. Now, I've been doing consulting work since I was 10. Personal, business, UFO, alien abduction, and technology related stuff since I was 10. It became public knowledge when I was 23. Okay. And I've been doing it became public knowledge at 10. It became a business, a professional system where I was actually generating an income when I was 23. Do I do this for a living? Absolutely. Am I a financial advisor? No. I'm a spiritual guy. But in the event of your finances, if you're on the verge of bankruptcy, before talking to a bankruptcy trustee, because I'll tell you, my experience with bankruptcy trustees, and they're not all the same. When you're dealing with small amounts, okay, when you're dealing with small amounts of money, okay, there is no functional reason to go into panic or into bankruptcy. Drop me a line at one of the contact points below this video. I'll be happy to bring you up to speed. If we need to schedule something, if it's more complex, then, we can schedule something if you choose. But the idea of going bankrupt on minimal numbers is a really bad idea in most cases. Okay, there are ways to cope with it. But bankruptcy itself, we're educated to listen to the so-called professionals, to the people that have been trained. In my experience, where it came to finance, I went to trained professionals, ones that were highly recommended as being very good at what they did. Both times, I was guided to declare bankruptcy. Both times, I absolutely should not have been. So, do I trust professional guidance? No. Okay. I went in, I did trust the doctor to put my arm back together. When I snapped it, that worked like a charm. I absolutely would not recommend going to a backwoods, medic. If you can avoid it, go to somebody that has the clinical training to repair damaged limbs, where it comes to operations. Where it comes to medication, I've got my own personal questions around it. Okay, but then I see what they do, and I can tell you a lot of what's being done is, you look at the medication side of things, and we're taught that the doctors and the pharmacies know what they're doing. Well, if that were the case, we wouldn't have the mess we have today. Okay, but the educational side of things, it is up to us to start educating ourselves and those around us to make things work more effectively. Absolutely, it is imperative that this happens. Because if it does not happen shortly, this world is going to go into one heck of a tailspin. And I don't know if you recall it, but I remember the Black Death coming through. It was not a good time. The Middle Ages was not a good time. It was not nearly as clean as it is today. And rest assured, the pollution today is getting to be insane. Okay? Now, again, we are taught. Now, when you're at home, you're taught, pick stuff up and put it in the garbage when you're at home. So, why so many people throw it on the ground when they're outside, I don't know. But I do know it's got to come to a halt. I do know that many of the problems that we are dealing with right now are being caused by the greed, by the disparity between peoples, by the fear. Okay, but it's what we're being taught. And the reason I came back is to spread one simple message, that working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. We can actually put this negative stuff behind us and starting today, move forward. Okay, when you're out and about, right, make sure you find, now there will be garbage blowing around anyway, okay? We have dumps to get the garbage too. But the wind still has a tendency of picking it up and blowing it places. So it will get out and about. But it doesn't have to start out and about. And of course, one person dropping a bottle on the ground isn't much. But you take a city of 100,000 people and have everybody throw a bottle on the ground, and all of a sudden you've got a mess. Now, the world did not take a short period of time to get to the state it's in. But it is at a point where we must start working together to turn that energy around, to start educating each other, and really push to make this a better world. You maximize the positive, you minimize the negative, and you move forward. Okay, but this is going to require the efforts of virtually everybody. And with this in mind, I am absolutely asking you to join me on this journey. to help me turn this tide, to take the negative energy that is there right now. Eliminate it from your own home first. That's where you start. Eliminate it from here. Now, I started off showing you this. Okay, or early on, I guess. You put your hands together just about that far apart. Okay. Wait until you can you focus until you can feel something between your hands. It may be heat, it may be kind of a pulsing energy pattern. I don't know, and it doesn't really matter. Once you feel it, focus on that energy. Feel the energy increase. And as you pull your hands apart, okay, like I can feel it very easily at this distance. Okay, but while you're doing that, you run one word through your mind, and only one. And that word being heal. By running that single word, you will actually reprogram your brain, you reprogram your body to actually put itself back together. Minor aches, minor pains, minor complications, and some serious ones. It will help. This said, if you have a serious illness, this is to be done in conjunction with standard medicine. This is not a replacement. Okay. This is simply something that works in addition. Many of you may know it as Reiki. I was never trained as a Reiki master, but then again, Reiki masters, from what I've gathered from talking to them, they use what are called chakras. The majority of them work with 7. The really good ones work with 9. I personally work with 28, which is why I don't go to Reiki healers. Okay, I found I could bypass them. But to say the least, I'm an extreme oddity. But we have to realize, take all the education you've seen and ask yourself, is that working for you? Can you do what you require? The basic math, addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Working with decimals so that you can work with cash. Okay, working with fractions so you can make proper, you can cook properly. Or more to the point, bake properly. And rest assured, and when I talk about baking properly, I'm referring to taking what somebody else has called a recipe and repeating that same recipe and coming up with the same answer. So you require your multiplication, division, subtraction, addition, fractions, and decimal points. If you can do those, you can work through most problems. Now, yes, when you get into engineering, you need higher education. You need more complex forms, but you've got to be able to do those basic things in your head. Any way you can. If you have to go back and start over at grade 1, do so. Strongly encourage you to do so. Go back and start over. Okay? And remind yourself how to do it. This is absolutely imperative. Now, I'm going to bring this to a close. I will be back again tomorrow. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other, and for pity's sakes, stay positive.